Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you got here to join us today because on this program we have a wonderful, wonderful guest who it just encompasses everything that has to do with Greensboro. She was at one point the voice of Greensboro. She does photography for the O. Henry magazine, for Carolina Theater. Please help us welcome the voice of Greensboro, Lynn Donovan.
Hello.
We're so glad to have you here.
Can I just correct one thing?
What?
She represents everything good about Greensboro. Yeah.
Well, recently, I guess we'll jump right into it. Recently, you just went to Yellowstone.
I did.
Was that in December?
In January. January 1st through January 10th or 11th in thigh-deep snow.
Wow.
And the only way to get in there is to go by snow coach because the roads are closed. Snow coach or snowmobile. We chose snow coach. But it's time to go because you're there by yourself. I was standing at Yellowstone and it was me, the moon, the geyser, and a bison. That's it. Nobody else.
No Kevin Costner, no.
No, but when we were there in the summer, there were probably 1 million people there.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing time to go.
So nobody wants to go there in the winter?
Well, you have to have it. It's hard to get in. You have to have reservations to get in. You have, like I say, you have to go in the snow coach. So it's very limited as to who can go in.
So where do you stay? Jackson Hole and then go that?
We stayed in Jackson for 3 nights, I think, and did the Tetons, and then took the snow coach into Yellowstone and stayed at the Snow Lodge, which is behind the information center at Old Faithful, and stayed there, and then went up to Cook City through the Lamar Valley and looked for wolves. So, yeah.
Wow.
And she's got some amazing, I'll pull up some of her photography here, but was this something that you and your husband went? Was this just something that you guys always wanted to do?
Yes, we have. Well, since I supposedly semi-retired or whatever
Yeah.
I'm doing, and since he retired, we've decided that travel is very high on our list. So we are going to all the places that we've wanted to go, and we're going to do it now while our health is good and we can do it. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm traveling and taking my cameras. My carry-on bag is this big, and it's all cameras. So, and maybe one piece of underwear, just in case.
Just in case. Yeah.
But yeah, so I am having a blast capturing the world.
Well, what's next on your to-do list? I mean, where are you?
To travel?
Yeah.
Actually, the Pantanal in Brazil is coming up in
Wow.
July, and we will be looking for jaguars on the river. They have been making a concerted effort there to bring the jaguar back.
Wow.
So it's really high that we will actually be able to see them and photograph them.
Wow.
So yeah, that's next, and then after that, I'm going to Norway to look at the Northern Lights.
Wonderful. Wonderful. You know, I'm up for adoption. If you, just want to throw that out.
You have to get in
there.
line behind the dogs.
I want to
no.
just throw that out there right now. So wildlife photography, because when I think of you behind the lens of a camera, I think of festivals, green scene, all these other things. But is that something that really pumps you up, the wildlife photography?
Oh yes, yes.
Okay.
The green scenes, the festivals, I love doing, and the little bit of money that I do get from those things goes to fund my equipment to go photograph the beauty of the
Not to say
wildlife.
some of that's not wildlife. But
Some of
it's
it is
just-
very wild.
But I'm fascinated because, first of all, I watch all of the reality shows on National Geographic with the
Oh, yes.
veterinarians, and
Yes.
I'm fascinated, and of course the zoos, shows, and everything. Now you did some work down at the zoo, didn't you?
I did. My husband volunteered after he retired, and he was working at the zoo in the plant area, helping with the planting and the bees and all that kind of stuff. So he was going down. I said, well, y'all need any photography? So they said, sure. So I documented all of their sculpture for them in the park. But as I was walking by the sculpture, I would sneak pictures of the animals too.
Yeah. Wow.
Was there something about animals that just drew you in?
I just they're so fascinating. And it's such a, I guess the challenge as well, the challenge of capturing the essence and the nature of them, of what they do in the wild, is just so fascinating to see. I could sit there for hours. You know, some people just, you know, okay, we're done. No, I could sit there for hours at one spot, and I have before. Hummingbirds, hours taking pictures of hummingbirds in Costa Rica.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Costa Rica, I'll never forget when I was there, probably the second day, one of the scarlet macaws just goes flying under the canopy, and I see it, and I'm nudging everybody to look, and I'm just stunned, because it's one thing to see it in a book, it's one thing, but when you see it just glide by, and oh, what a majestic.
And in fact, one of the pictures I sent you was we came upon a pair of macaws in a tree, and they were just like all lovey-dovey and like Valentine's Day, and then all of a sudden it was like war.
Yeah.
I have pictures of them upside down, wings everywhere, beaks hitting, and
Oh,
finally
it was
falling out of
Valentine's
the
Day.
tree.
It was definitely Valentine's Day.
It was
then.
amazing. And then I saw the green macaw,
Yeah.
the second trip.
Now,
So-
is this like fighting over dominance
Heck,
of,
I don't
of
know.
a mate, or was this just fighting?
I guess they were just
It sounds like a little bit of mating
yeah,
to me.
mating,
You know?
probably.
Yeah.
But it was just, everybody's going, whoa. The pictures, I can't pick a favorite because they're all so cool. Yeah.
When did you move into digital photography?
I can tell you exactly when I moved into it. We went to Alaska, and it was 2004, and they had just come out with digital, and I'm going, I like my film. Okay, I'll take both. So I took my F100 and I took my new digital, and I was shooting with both. Well, I got home, looked at the digital, and went, these are terrible. I had no clue you had to edit them. Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
And then I went and revisited those pictures once I knew what I was doing in editing, and they're beautiful. You know, I use some of them today still from 2004.
Well, I honestly, and I'm not. This is a gratuitous. You really, I don't think I've ever seen a bad picture you've taken. So,
It's because I don't put them out there.
well,
You know, somebody once told me that a professional photographer takes as many bad pictures as anybody else. It's just you never see them.
you never see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You happen to be the filter
Yep.
between the lens and the public.
And what people see.
Yeah.
So you want to put your best out there.
How old were you when you first got the photography bug?
Well, I had a Brownlee camera when I was in Girl Scouts.
Little square one, that little white button you push.
And then my
down.
dad had a Polaroid. We just fascinated him. Oh, wow. Watch it develop right in front of your eyes, which was really, really cool. But I didn't start with the DSLR until I started working for the city at Fairview Recreation Center. And I got somebody to teach a class, and I just listened in and said, this is really cool. So I bought a camera, started playing, never took a class, just self-taught reading, whatever.
The rest, they say, is history.
And started, and just fell in love with it.
Because there's a lot more to it than just pointing and shooting.
A lot more to it than just
Yeah.
pointing. I don't. I guess people say that I have an eye, and I guess that's what it is. I can look at a picture I've taken. Somebody standing right beside me and they're completely different.
Yeah.
So I guess I see things differently than some people do.
Do you think that's part of a learning curve, or is it?
I think part of it's
innate?
learning. You have to learn what some rules apply, but I break all the rules all the time.
Well, that's why we love you too.
It's just it's just what I think is what I like, what comes from my heart, and what I do that's what I like, and nobody else does it like what I see. So I guess, does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always think of like a sunset picture as always, or something like that. Like a sunset picture is always breaking the rules because you're never facing the sun, or you should never face the sun.
And I face the
when
sun
you-
all the time.
Yeah, it's you're always breaking the rules, and you just kind of you just kind of mess around
And I learned early on to shoot in manual. I don't shoot anything in automatic, which gives you control over your lighting, and as you know, whether you're backlit or whatever, you've got to know
Yeah.
a little bit about it. So sometimes I get all befuddled, and right now I'm shooting with Nikon and Sony at the same time. So my little wee brain sometimes gets overloaded because you pick up one and you're shooting with both, and you get, wait a minute, which one is this? Where's the control on this one?
Is there anything you prefer over the other?
I prefer the Sony for wildlife, hands down.
And is there any reason you use the Nikon versus the Sony?
Actually, I still like my 850, my DSLR 850 for everything else, for my concerts and theater and all the stuff like that. It's just nothing like it. The mirrorless, I've gone mirrorless on a couple, and I'm trying to learn it, that's a whole nother ball game. So everything evolves and moves and changes, and you either go with it or get left behind.
Well, let me ask you this, because I asked you, and you knew the date and everything about when you took your first digital pictures, but when did you break from film and from developing and doing that?
Shortly after that, I mean.
Okay, so it was not a
4 or 5 years,
protracted.
maybe. No,
wow, 4 or 5 years.
I don't know if it was that long or not. I still have my F100. I still have my film camera, and I believe there's still film in it.
Question is, where do you get new film?
You don't, and where do you get it developed? Just nobody does it anymore.
Well, actually, Walt.
But I actually never did learn darkroom.
Really?
No, yeah, I just, I would send it off and have somebody else develop it. So the nice thing about going digital was you have your own digital darkroom.
Yeah.
You can manipulate and do your own things digitally that you used to do in the darkroom that I never learned. So that was a plus side of the digital for me. So I could actually manipulate and do things that I wanted to the shot.
Now, you talked about editing, that you have to edit. What do you do in your editing? Do you have a certain process for certain things that you go through when you're editing?
Yeah, I'll download the pictures, put them in, bring them in the Lightroom, go through, and I'll get rid of all the ones that I don't want people to see.
Okay, the Lightroom.
Like the ones that are out of focus.
Okay. Stop, the Lightroom. What is the Lightroom in a digital?
Lightroom is the name of the program.
Okay.
Lightroom,
gotcha.
Adobe Lightroom, and Photoshop is what I use.
Okay.
Which is one of the main ones that people use. I used Aperture for years, Apple's Aperture, and then they ditched it. So that was a whole other thing. I had to completely learn new software, which is challenging.
It's like our conversation.
Yeah, in
lunch.
itself.
Yeah.
But I'll ditch the bad ones, then I'll go through and I'll rate them and then start editing from there and narrow it down until I've got the ones that I think are the best ones.
Wow.
And it can take hours and hours and hours because I shoot a lot. I'm a very prolific shooter. And when I shoot for somebody, I want them to have as many images as they can have to use, especially nonprofits that I do a lot of, and they can't afford to get a really expensive photographer. So that's one of my give backs.
That's hey.
So I will give them all of the images, that are good, not the bad ones, but the ones that are good.
Yeah. Well, the thing I can say in watching you with the camera is you're not seen. You're almost invisible.
That's my goal.
And I see so many, people learning photography. Oh, they're up there everywhere, and you just see them running back and forth across and taking pictures, and it's a different animal from someone who knows what they're doing, and of course that comes with years of experience.
So much black to wear because I wear black in all the inside venues that I shoot in, so I'm less visible. You just learn how to move stealthily.
Yeah, well,
and not be visible.
Yeah, and a lot of these cameras are noisy from,
And that's another thing with the mirrorless, they're so quiet. You can hear that click of that mirror on the DSLR, and the mirrorless, nothing.
Wow.
Let me stand right beside you, and you
Come a
would know I
long
took
way
a
from
pic.
that brownie, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I have some of these photos from, I had it. There we go. And I'm going to pull these up on the, we're going to edit them in, speaking of editing, we're going to edit these in post.
Okay.
Tell me about, I guess we went through your trip a little bit, and this was a beautiful photo of the.
That's a bison jam.
Yeah.
And they are something.
They're heading to the snow coach. That's
They probably are. They actually use the roads because they're semi-groomed, so it's a lot easier to walk through the roads than through snow that's a couple of feet high. So they will walk on the roads, but they also you don't want to startle them or make them move fast because they have to expend energy which they don't have in the winter. They're trying to keep that energy to live in the cold. So you try not to startle them and make them run, but a couple times we saw some of them running, and I tell you what, they're awesome animals.
Well, that just shows the research you do into the animals you're going to shoot, and I mean shoot with a camera.
Definitely.
It's pretty in depth to know those kind of things, and so I wonder, getting ahead of myself here, about the jaguar that you're looking. Are you currently doing research on?
I will. I haven't had time to yet, but that's not till July, so I'm good with that. But yeah,
because I mean, knowing those things are so important.
and you have to know those things to know where to find them, you know, and what kind of things to expect, the way they move and where they go, and so you can. That's why guides are so good to have, because they know so much, and they know where the animals are, and what they do, and that way you can find somebody and find something and get a good picture rather than just sitting there. And I've gone on trips before with just Dan and I, and they were great, wonderful, and then you go on one with a guide, and it's like,
wow,
how did I miss all this?
Just
because they know and they can see things. One of my guides in Costa Rica, it was a toucanet that was in a tree, and they're green, and he was in a green tree, and he said, "There it is, right there." I went, "There. Right there." Where? And he's just, how he saw that.
Yeah.
It's just experience.
Yeah.
I finally saw it, and I finally got the picture. But it's sometimes, and my husband's got fantastic spotting, so he's a great spotter. He'll spot something, and he'll go, "Okay, there it is." And so I'm shooting, and he'll spot the next thing, and I'm shooting. So we make a good team.
Is there an animal in particular that you really want to shoot that you haven't yet, that will be
Both the
on your
jaguars.
short list? Huh?
No, I like them all.
Okay.
Birds especially. I love birds, but they're very hard to shoot.
Yeah. And I think too that, I think about when you say birds, in North Carolina, of course, we're a flyway for the migrating birds from Canada. At least we are for now. With global warming, who knows how long that'll be.
Exactly.
But I had, in another life, interviewed to be with the Audubon Society.
Oh, wow.
And to help them raise money. And I found out so much. And even our former mayor, Carolyn Allen, and her husband were big Audubon people.
I saw their presentation on Galapagos when they got back.
But it was funny. So I go to the state Audubon people, and they start educating me about people back in my community who are so active with Audubon, and it was very enlightening. And of course, they love to have the photographers. And they know where the birds, when they're going to be there, but I can only imagine how tough it is to photograph.
Because they're usually not very close ever.
Yeah.
So that's why I towed a lens that's like. In fact, I weighed my camera and lens just out of curiosity the other day, and it's almost 9 pounds just for one.
Wow.
Guns of steel.
Oh yeah, I'm just thinking, here we are measuring, Oh,
I mean, that must get tiring.
Yes, it does.
And because you carry the strap too to hold them up and everything.
I put them across my shoulder. I usually two. In fact, at festivals, I usually have 3. So yeah, it gets very tiring. Sore back.
Yeah, well, that's your winter scenes. I mean, this is incredible. And of course, Brian will have these
That's Yellowstone.
loaded up on this. That's
what the road looked like.
Now, this is crazy, and I'm sure no one else would find this even interesting. But when you say the snow coach, is this like a bus with big wheels on it?
It's a huge wheels.
Okay.
I think they could get 12 people in them, and we had 6. or 7. We had two. We had two. One
Like
was 6
tractor
and one was
tire
7.
type
Yeah,
thing.
they're huge.
Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly what they are.
That's-
And then some of those bison jams, we're going through with the snow coach, and then there's some snowmobilers behind us thinking they're going to go through, and like they're going, these guys had better hurry up or they're going to get stuck, you know, and bison are really unpredictable. So you don't want to get too close to one.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is some of those pictures look so close. Were you still in the?
Some of them I was still in the snow coach. I did unfortunately have a close encounter with one. One of the guides and myself and another young lady wanted to walk up to one of the geysers, and we had maybe 45 minutes. So the three of us headed up, got there. I'm taking pictures. She's looking. He says, "I got to go back because we're leaving.
Yeah.
Y'all be fine." Sure. I mean, it was a semi-groomed trail.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're fine. So we're, I don't know, 3/4 of the way back, and I look, and there's a bison on the side of the trail. Unfortunately, on the other side of the trail was a huge stand of trees.
Oh, boy.
We couldn't get by. So we're standing there and standing there. Now I've got my long camera, my backpack with a couple other cameras. Finally, some snow skiers came through, and they went around and kind of broke the snow this much. So we said, we got to go. They're waiting on us. Our snow coach is waiting on us. We stepped off that trail, sunk thigh deep.
Man.
So we are trying to blaze through, around, get right around, and I look, and here comes the bison. I'm going, and then he put his head down and started eating. We get back up on the trail, and okay, we're by.
You have that animal magnetism.
So
Yeah.
it's just like a bison and a moose, you don't trust.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
we were fine. But
and
it's
these are wild animals, and
They
you
are,
you
yeah.
are in their element too.
and some people just don't get it and don't understand that they are wild animals, and we are in their house, and you have to remember that.
How
And,
big was the herd when you look back?
oh, some of them were hundreds.
Wow. That's just,
Some were just like all one bet. And
poor guy got kicked out of the herd.
I don't know if you saw one of the pictures I just love. One lone bison on the side of the road, all laid
As far
down,
as you knew.
hunkered. Now, he was all by himself, completely covered with snow. Completely covered with snow.
Wow.
He'd been there all night long.
Wow, yeah.
And the moose, yeah, that's it. And
Wow.
then the moose, we saw, there were probably 8, 9 moose at one point together. And you never see that with bull moose. They usually stay away from
Yeah.
each other, but they're all together in the valley there, just chomping away.
You know, I was
Yep.
up in Nova Scotia and was on Cape Breton Trail, and I'd never seen a moose. And I say to the family, we're all in the car, and I said, you know, I've never seen a moose. I hope we see one. When we wind down, it's not 5 minutes later, and I see somebody off the side of the road with a camera. And I said, well, I wonder what he's looking at. We go over there, and it's a big bull moose.
Bull moose.
And I'm like, okay, life's good, you know.
Yep. Well, we went there to find wolves, and we actually did see them, but they're usually so far away that
Yeah.
you can see what they are. They're about this big. But you,
And they don't like to be found.
no,
I
no,
mean,
no. But we saw a group of 6 in Teton, which you rarely see them in Teton. So I got some pictures of those, and then we saw a lone wolf in Lamar Valley that was way up on the hill. So we did see them.
Yeah, and you got some pictures.
I got pictures to prove it, but you know, you'd look at it and go, "What's that? What's that dot?"
Well, let me ask you this. They reintroduced the red wolf down into
In the eastern
North-
coast, they did.
and the Alligator River Wildlife Refuge.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, have you been down there or even?
We were, but I've not been down. You're not gonna see them. I mean, we looked
Yeah.
because my husband and I went down. And
Well,
we
they
were-
sure have the blinking signs everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
To make sure you don't hit one.
Yeah, but in fact, another photographer friend of mine goes down there all the time, and he'd been looking for them and has
Yeah.
not found them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Man. Old Faithful, was it everything you thought it would be?
I'd seen it before. I had seen it in the summertime, like I said, with thousands and thousands of other
Yeah.
people, where you couldn't even, the little benches there were, more than elbow to elbow, and you couldn't get close,
Yeah.
and it was really cool. And the difference in the winter is there's nobody there, but if you look, it's a lot of steam. In
Yeah.
the summertime, you see the water.
Yeah.
I have like sharp images of the water as it's coming out. You can see it. In the winter, it's all covered with the steam because it's so cold. So that was a big difference. You could see it erupting and you could hear it erupting, but it's like, okay, it's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
There's all this steam coming out.
Wow, that's fascinating.
And this brings me to my thought of what you were saying earlier, is that you have what you would consider as not as good pictures as the ones that we see. You filter them, right? But being that you're in this situation, you might go back, but it won't be the same, or something will be different. At this point to take more, because you are going to come back.
You take,
as many as you can.
it's digital now. That's another good thing about
Yeah.
digital. You can shoot and shoot and shoot. As long as you've got cards, you can shoot. And battery life. Battery life's a big thing in the cold.
Yeah.
But film. Oh, do I have enough? I need to save it for
Yeah.
in case I see something. That kind of thing. So yeah, I keep everything that I shoot, unless it's just so blurry you can't even see what it is, just for the memory, not for anybody else, just for me.
Do you have a computer that you just use for nothing more than your photographs?
I have a computer here and a computer at our cabin, and I go back and forth editing between the two, and I have 3 external hard drives at the cabin for storage. I have 3 or 4 here.
Wow.
That I keep everything on.
Let me ask you, do you ever go back and look at those very first pictures that you shot to
I do.
just think about, because you've come a long way.
I have. In fact, going through, you were asking for photos, and I started looking, and I said, dang, I wish I'd had this camera when I was there, So yeah, it's fun to see the progression,
Yeah.
not only my eye and everything else, but just really cool to see it.
And Brian's heard me use this. It's become cliche now, but it's so like when you go to Kitty Hawk and you see when the Wright brothers flew, every time they went further
in
because
each
they were
time.
learning how to fly.
They were.
And it's like, that's why I asked that question, because I know that with your eye today, you didn't have that to begin with.
No, and it's you never stop learning.
Yeah.
You just keep learning, and you keep doing, and you keep.
Yeah. Well, now I'm gonna bring up something here. We can always go back to any and every topic, but I want you to know that this popcorn is here for a reason,
Yeah.
and I want you to tell the audience because I imagine most people watching have been to the Carolina Theater and have probably seen the plaque right beside the snack bar with your name on it and talking about the popcorn. So tell us about that.
My love of popcorn is legendary. My husband decided that he was going to make a donation to have the popcorn machine at the Carolina presented by Lynn Donovan Photography. And they surprised me with it.
Wow.
And it was like, oh, wow. And actually, that's what I charge the Carolina, is a box of popcorn when I shoot for them.
Wow.
So I shoot all their events and all their stuff, and I take a box of popcorn home with me to eat.
That is good popcorn, I'll tell you.
It's legendary.
There's a big difference in good popcorn and just, what we
Yes,
have here.
it's, and I have been known sometimes at the end of the night when they get ready to throw everything out, if I'm really late, I take the whole trash bag home with me full
Yep.
of popcorn.
Yep. Yep. And I'm sure no one minds.
Oh, no.
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 No. Well, I did want to bring that up because you are legendary, and you will always be remembered there. In addition to your great photography. So,
Yay, popcorn.
and in the lead-in, Brian said that you were the voice of Greensboro. Explain to our audience why you were the voice of Greensboro.
Most people probably don't remember that you used to have to
Nah.
call the answer line with the city of Greensboro to find out information when your trash was going to be picked up, when your leaves are going to be picked up, when this happened, when that happened. They had auditions for somebody to do all those recordings. So I auditioned and I got it. And I was the voice of Greensboro, so I would go do all the recordings. People would send me the scripts, and I'd go down in a little room and just record them. And then they got to where I could do it actually on the phone. I could just
Wow.
do it on the phone, and I did it until they dropped the answer line when everybody started going online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to love that. And when we tell you how she's so multifaceted, you can see why.
Oh, she can sing, she can dance. She was in, well, she worked here for the city. You were involved with City Stage?
Yeah, yes, I was involved with City Stage. I was chairman of the children's area for forever. I created it and did that for the whole time that City Stage was around, actually, I guess.
Wow.
And tell us about City Stage, because it's before the time that I was here. So
City Stage was sort of, you can liken it to the folk festival, only with all kinds of music, not just
Right.
folk type music. And the Arts Council sponsored it, and Parks and Recreation got involved. Well, it was always involved with a lot of the stuff, but they came to Parks and Rec and said, will you do the children's area? Will you make a children's area? So we did. And we would have a special area that was just dedicated just for the kids to come and do stuff, and the kids stage and all that. So,
You know,
yeah.
I will never forget one of the City Stage. I took my oldest daughter, who will be 30 years old next month, and she was a little girl, and David Clayton Thomas was on the back of a flatbed trailer. and for those people who don't realize, David Clayton Thomas was the voice of Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and had that raspy voice.
Yep.
And you would also recognize the voice because it was in some of the Budweiser commercials. You know, when the Budweiser truck was going through the snow, or horse-drawn carriage going through the snow. But I think back on that and how much, not only how much fun those were, but how well organized.
Yeah, it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
So you could really say it's a precursor to what we have today with the Folk Festival.
They're very similar, yes. Yeah,
Have you been involved with the Folk Festival, or
I photograph it every year for them. Yeah.
why did I ask? It's golly bum.
Yes, and then don't forget Bicentennial. That was another huge thing
Oh, yeah.
that we had, which was
Yeah.
as big as both of those.
Yeah.
So yeah, Greensboro's known for lots of fun stuff, lots of fun festivals.
Yeah, we have a lot of them, don't we? Fun Fourth,
Mhm.
Folk Festival.
Which I was
You know,
involved with Fun Fourth for a long time
Yeah.
too. Yeah,
The arts community is just so, it thrives in this city.
yes it does.
And we're very fortunate, because I will tell you that in many other cities, and I will just say it out loud, Raleigh included, they don't have as vibrant an art scene as we do.
We are lucky.
What is it about Greensboro that makes up the art scene here?
You know, I don't know, but it's always been like that. I mean, when I was with the Music Center with City Arts, you know, it just, the people love it. I mean, all of the groups that I managed, the concert band, the choral society, the youth chorus, I mean, they were arts, but they were arts for the people. They weren't something that was up here that was unattainable. It was for them and still is.
Yeah.
So you can participate. The theater, you know, livestock, when we had livestock, it was all local people that did it. And I'd put any of those shows up against, you know,
Absolutely.
a lot of really good stuff because it was good.
Yeah.
And it was done by your neighbors. You know, and that's what I think makes it so good and makes people want to support it.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of the shows that, the Stephen Hires Theater has put on by, by the city, and it's just, like you said, it's like by your neighbors.
Yeah.
And the improv shows that they do.
Yeah.
I mean, these people, like, they coach and they work,
Yeah.
and I think it's I know it was about every Wednesday or so, they have their workshops. And I mean, just funny as all get out. Some of these improv shows are, and the acts, that they put on, are just, they're awesome.
I would say-
It's amazing the talent that we have here, actually.
And being in this building, I will just flat tell you, it is so fun because, you know, I don't keep up with the days and the nights and what is actually going on, but I may walk out of here at night and all these kids are coming in ballet tutus and
Yep.
everything.
Yep.
And then the next week I might walk out on a different night and it will be everyone's got an instrument and they're going in for concert band
Exactly.
practice. And, you know, it really, this building just embodies everything that we've been talking about as far as that goes. Now tell us about Lynn Donovan, the person. Where are you from originally? And
Greensboro, North Carolina.
Wow.
Born and raised,
Wow.
as were both of my parents.
wow.
I'm an anomaly.
Well, yeah,
Nobody's from
exactly,
here.
exactly. Because, you know, I ask that question to just about anyone I meet because most people are not from here.
Exactly.
And I'm not from here. Brian's not from here. I mean, but we got here. We all finally got here. And yet you've been here all along.
In fact, I laugh. My patient number at Moses Cone Hospital is so low that if I have to go in for anything, they look and go, "Oh my goodness, were you born here?" I said, "Yep, they opened in September and I was born in December."
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Now, Grimsley or
Grimsley.
Page? Okay.
Yeah, Kaiser Grimsley
Yeah. Wow.
and UNCG.
Excellent. Well, you really are homegrown.
Yep.
Yeah. How lucky we are.
Tell us about your time. What was it like growing up in Greensboro?
It was wonderful. I loved growing up in Greensboro. We and our family ended up in the Guilford Hills neighborhood. When I was second grade, I think, we moved there from Princeton. We lived on Princeton and then moved there. And it was kids everywhere. I mean, the doors were always open to everybody's house. You just walked in and out of houses. I remember walking up and down the street on my stilts and roller skating with the old metal roller skates up and down the street. We'd go in the creek down in the old Guilford Hills Park, which isn't even there anymore, I don't think, and play in the creek for hours. We'd go out at daybreak and come home at dark when Daddy whistled for dinner.
Yeah.
We'd spend in the summertime all day at the pool. We all swam. We grew up swimming, so I was a swimmer my whole life, and it was a
Do you
great.
still swim? I mean,
I did. I haven't in a long time, but yeah, I coached. Ended up coaching for 30 years. So yeah, it was a great time to grow up in Greensboro.
well, you must have been very happy when we developed the Greensboro Aquatic Center.
Yes,
and-
I think it's a great thing. I've only been in there 2 or 3 times. I
Yeah.
haven't done much with it, but
I used to look forward to City Swim Meet because it was such
it was so great.
it was just, you could go tent to tent and see everyone
We did.
in Greensboro.
You know, we would. That was the thing in the summer was the Lindley Park
And that's the only thing I
Community
will
Swim
say.
Association.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that I would say the Greensboro Aquatic Center kind of ruined.
It did.
But on the other hand, when we would have those downpours
The
of rain,
thunderstorms.
yeah,
Oh,
at least that's not
a good
problem.
part. But no, you just can't capture what was
No.
at the tent cities of
No.
the kids. It just we
It-
used to take. I don't know if you remember this. We used to take boxes of Jell-O, and you would eat the Jell-O.
Oh yeah.
Just the
Yeah.
straight. That's why. Don't know why. I can't believe we all didn't just sink straight to the bottom doing it, but everybody did it. You know,
I used to time some out there for them, and it was great. I met so many people, and I think back like Jerry Lymanstall here in town. I met Jerry timing, and we've been friends ever since.
Yeah.
And just that whole swim culture, you know, my kids are better for having done it.
Exactly. It
Not just learning to swim, but
No,
because it's one of the few sports where old kids and young kids
are
do it
all
together.
together. And it's a team sport, but it's an individual sport.
That's right.
Because your mic. No, others.
Others.
Yeah, because your mic's going to hit it. Sorry.
No problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, Greensboro was a great place to grow up. You know, it really was. It had a
So-
small town feel, but really wasn't a small town.
Yeah. Well, growing up in Gastonia, we thought Greensboro was just huge, you know.
And I remember going downtown with my grandmother with little gloves on and a hat to go to the Myers Tea Room. I mean, that was a big deal with my grandmother. And then when we got in high school, the big thing was to take the bus downtown from Guilford Hills and go and go to Prego Guys and all these places to shop for shoes and it was cool.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And then Friendly Center gang.
The old Friendly Center.
Yeah.
That was close enough too that we could ride our bicycles. So yeah.
Which what's his name? Melvin actually he said we messed up when we put the mall over there. He said because it drew everybody out of downtown, and then the same thing happened when the Coliseum went over, because the Coliseum was, I think, one of the places they had thought of putting it was in this area on Church Street.
Mm-hmm.
And when they put it out there, it just drew everybody out.
Out.
That and the mills closing and all that
Yep.
stuff. And
Yep.
it just, but anyway.
So did you photograph for the News and Record
No.
at any point?
When I was in livestock, I did all of their photography. So everything that they used for livestock was my photography. So in that sense, yes. And
Well, I started to say, I've seen your name in the paper credited.
and for events, they will use my stuff a lot.
Yeah.
But in fact, they did approach me at one point and wanted to know if I would consider doing football, and I went, no.
Well, let me
Not
tell-
that I think it would be fun, but it was every Friday night, and
Yeah.
I just went, no, I don't want. It was after I retired. I don't want to be on a schedule. I want to.
Yeah.
I want to pick and choose.
I still run the chain gang for Page High School football. I haven't had a child there in years. And I will tell you, to watch those photographers, you can tell the novice photographer who will get there and I'll go, I don't think I'd be there if I were you.
You're going to get tackled.
And the next thing you know, they're bam, they're up against the fence.
Yeah.
And yet you'll see the older, wiser photographer get the best shots and not even be near the field.
Yep.
Uh,
So no, I never actually officially shot for them.
Well, I'm intrigued by the wildlife photography for the. At this point, we're going to have you back to talk about the Jaguars after you. Hopefully, we'll have,
I'm hoping.
yeah. As long as they're not four-wheel Jaguars, we're okay.
No. Don't want one of those.
I was perusing your South Africa trip as well, and I just thought that was
It was
fascinating.
been on my bucket list my whole life. And
Any reason?
just I wanted to see the animals, and my husband went, no, I don't want to do that. So I kept talking about it, and then finally one day he said, yeah, I think I might want to do it. So we did it, and he loved it. The only thing he didn't like was the 17-hour plane ride, and that's tough. And we also did Australia and New Zealand, which was a 27-hour plane ride.
Yeah.
So the plane rides are not good, but getting over there and seeing that wildlife that you've seen on National Geographic
Yeah.
and the whole bit was stunning. I mean, to have a leopard just walk this close by your vehicle,
Yeah.
it's indescribable.
And it's just amazing because you just, like you said, you don't get that kind of experience.
Not here.
Here, I mean, not that there's anything wrong with squirrels and deer in Greensboro, but
Or
No. But I mean, the first experience we had, we get into the safari vehicle the first night, and we're late afternoon. We're going out, and we saw elephant, this big elephant. And it's, that's really cool. So I'm taking pictures, and we're all sitting there in our little vehicle, and all of a sudden the elephant starts walking by, and then he turns and sees us, charges the vehicle. Ears just going like this, and I got a great picture of him. And Dan's filming with his camera, and you can see he's going, and the camera just goes boink. He just drops it. It's like and then he picks it up. He kept filming. He still had it. And our guide said, he just said, I'm bigger than you are.
Yeah.
I see you, and
Stay
I can
in your
win.
lane. Oh, yeah.
And he turned and walked away.
Yeah. Well, I think about the wildlife locally, and I have to laugh because I looked out the window one time at my house, and there's this hawk on the back deck, and he's just ripping the feathers off of a bird. And it's like, then a couple weeks later, I look, and this is the same hawk, and he's pulling the fur off of a squirrel, and it's like, my gosh, these urban hawks and even falcons up on top of the Jefferson Pilot building.
They do.
That's incredible. Oh my gosh.
And I believe that's from South
You guys
Africa
will
as
have to
well.
see
They
these
were playing. Those
pictures in a
were
little bit.
siblings. They were playing.
Wow.
What a great shot.
Yeah. Oh,
It was
man.
just fascinating. But you're talking about watching the watching them eat and do the things they do in
Yeah.
their lives. We actually, I think I sent you a picture, saw a lion eating and its cub. They had killed, the mama had taken down a baby giraffe, and they were in a thicket, so it was hard to see, but I got through the thicket with the lens and got pictures of the
Oh my
the cub and the dad eating. So they're eating and just helping themselves. And
Buffet.
mom's watching.
Yeah.
Mom comes over like, "It's my turn. Can I have some?" Dad goes, "No," and they will not let her eat until they're finished. Even though she
Is nursing.
got the
and
prey. No,
probably-
she got the prey. She
Yeah.
took it down.
Well, it's the same way in this country, right, with women.
Yes, men.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, we saw the same thing similar in Costa Rica. We saw an alligator. Yeah, it was an alligator. We thought it was a garbage bag or something. We were like, "What is that?" And got closer, and it was a calf, a baby calf he had gotten. And we actually saw him chomp down on it, do the death roll, come up, and eat it. And I didn't send you any of these. I've got pictures of bones, stuff going everywhere. Just because I just saw it and I just started shooting and just. I'm standing up in a boat that's going like this.
Yeah, and I think about people that actually
know.
go out and swim in these rivers and things. I'm like, no thank you.
And we asked, we said, "Have you ever seen that before?" And the boat driver said, "I've been doing this for 25 years and I've never seen it.
Wow.
Never."
Wow.
So we've seen some incredible stuff. It just things that like you see and you can't believe that it's actually happening.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
opened my eyes as to the circle of life,
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah, you're getting an education while you're out taking pictures.
I
as
am.
well.
You know, it's something you don't think about a whole lot until you actually start seeing it.
Yeah.
There is a food chain and there is a circle of life, and it's normal and it's natural. So
Wow. You know, I read about, you know, the Florida panther that they're trying to bring back, that, you know, it teetered on extinction, but they found places. But I think what happens in this country is the habitat shrink, and, you know,
people don't want to live with them. They don't
Yeah.
want to mess with them.
And
So they want to
eventually-
get rid of them.
eventually all the kids will have to go to zoos to see any of this.
Exactly. Exactly.
But, well, what's been your most favorite thing in your life behind the lens?
Ooh, that's a hard one.
It is, and that's what we do. We ask the
I
hard
thought he was going to
questions.
say in general.
No, no.
That's a loaded question.
I want behind the lens, because when you see those kind of things and you capture them with the camera, there have to be times when the adrenaline was flowing.
All the time.
So,
It's just like, wow, how am I going to hold still enough? I'm so excited to see this.
yeah. But that's not a picture from the Carolina Theater. I'm talking about a picture from, you know, when you're out there.
Oh, yeah.
And the stories you've told about the bison, I mean, I can see how, you know, especially when you've got this white covering over everything, how that would be so
Special.
very special.
It was just amazing.
But
to see.
intimidating at the same time. I mean, so when you think, what are some of the most poignant parts of your life that have been behind that lens?
I guess first thing that comes to mind is the first close encounter I had with a moose, or actually
Wow.
two, and that was actually in Yellowstone. The first trip we went, we saw some moose in the Snake River, and we were on the other side, and they were standing in the Snake River, and a boat went by and tried to stop, couldn't, because it's so swift, and the moose are walking upstream like it's nothing, and the boat can't stop. So we drove around to see if we could find where the moose was. Well, we saw a lady sitting on this little dock, and she was doing some plein air painting. We look, and here comes the moose,
Oh my God.
right behind us. She looks and gets up and tries to get out. Well, I had my camera bag on the bench. We're trying to move over. The moose comes, sticks its nose in my camera bag, looks at me. We're going, oh my gosh, trying to get away from it, and then it goes over and lays down. So I've got a picture of that moose just filling my frame. And I look back on it and go, man, he could have sneezed and I'd been gone. You know,
Yeah.
we'd have been gone, both
Yeah.
of us. And then in Fisher Cap Lake in Glacier, we were there at sunset, which is the best time to see them. And this huge bull moose comes in, rack like this. So we're standing here, and the bull moose is here. Well, all of a sudden, here comes the bull moose. And we're going, we split. He goes between us. I could have touched him. He goes between us, and we're going, turn around, and there's his baby
Oh, wow.
in
You're
the
lucky.
trees, in the trees. So I've got a picture of Dad and baby nose to nose through the trees, and then they went around to the other end of the lake and met Mom, and I got one shot of all three of them before they took off.
Wow.
So I guess things like that
Yeah, no kidding.
that are dangerous, but
Yeah.
just so exciting.
Yeah, yeah. She's in constant demand.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
Are we done?
One moment.
that's her watch.
It's my watch.
Oh, is it?
It's my
Yeah.
sister.
It's your watch.
You know, I had that thing cut off.
It's okay.
Sorry about
Well,
that.
So this brings us to another point. In South Africa, I went down a rabbit hole when I was going through your photos and your information and your Facebook page and all this stuff. You went to Johannesburg. Tell us about Johannesburg.
It
Yeah.
is a huge, huge city. And just, we were only there 2 nights, I think, and 1 day. And we were supposed to have gone, I can't even remember now, we were supposed to have gone to some old caves, but we couldn't go because it was pouring down rain and it was too dangerous to get into the caves. So we ended up going to just a city tour and went and saw a lot of stuff in the city and went to the Hector Peterson Museum that depicts some of when they tried to make the young people speak Afrikaans instead of their native languages, and they rebelled, and one of the young men ended up getting killed. And there's a whole museum dedicated to him, which was just sobering to see that that things like that actually happened. And we were talking about the shanty towns. I'd always wanted to see the shanty
Yeah.
town, and it's eye-opening.
Yeah.
But they say that some of them are fairly nice on the inside, and you know that some people choose to live there.
Yeah.
But it's a different
Yeah.
world than some of our bigger cities. I know we have slums in our bigger cities, but it was eye-opening.
Yeah.
It's an education.
Because that overhead shot, it was just vast with the shanty town. I mean, it's just
They go on
the
and on.
tin roofs, I guess you would
Yeah.
call it. It's just a
Yeah.
vast
Yeah.
amount of them, like almost like you shot a landscape of a grassland, just
that
with
was
shanty
that was in
roofs.
Soweto. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And how did you get that shot? Were you just in an elevated position, or?
I think we were in. I'm trying to remember. I don't even remember. And I think I was in the van, standing up in the van.
I hope you write a lot of stuff down, because
You know, at
as
some
many
point
places,
I try to,
Yeah.
but you know, I'll start a journal type thing and then don't finish it, and then the best way I can remember something is to go back and look at the pictures.
Yeah.
So what I try and do is I'm really trying to get diligent now of labeling in Lightroom all my pictures. So if somebody said, like today, do you have a picture of a lion?
Yeah.
If I label it lion,
Yeah.
I can pull them all up and see. So that's very labor intensive, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to do it as I go.
Well, now, as you, and what reminded me of this, but having grown up in Greensboro and been a contributing member of the community for all these years, what do you see as the biggest challenge for Greensboro going forward? Because when I hear the shanty towns in South Africa, I just think, you know, when we walk to lunch or anything, we can't help but see homeless.
There's homeless everywhere.
Yeah.
Housing is a challenge, not just here but everywhere. You know, and people are just having a hard time finding places to live. For one thing, places are getting so expensive.
Yeah.
Even rent is getting
Yeah.
out of reach for some people, and that's scary.
Yeah.
But it's a big problem to find out, you know, how do we do this? Do Does Greensboro pay for it? Do we pay for it?
Yeah.
Do the people pay for it? You know,
But something has to.
something's got
Well,
to.
someone has to have some kind of vision that we can all grasp at
Yes.
some point. But I think about improvements the short time I've been here. When I came, my first job out of college, I worked for selling Yellow Page ads. And,
Oh, my goodness.
oh yeah. So, and we were like gypsies. We traveled all over or I should say the Roma people. We traveled all over the state. And so when I first came to Greensboro, you know, you would come down Holden Road and then it would go into 2 lanes and you go through the neighborhood and everything, and now that's all changed. You've got Bryan Boulevard. You know, the city used to end right there at Westridge.
I lived there.
And you look, and I mean, that's not that long ago. When you really think about it, I mean, 40, 50 years, that's not in the grand scheme
Yeah.
of things.
John, I'm going to have to cut you off because we
Hey.
just got our wrap-up cue.
Good,
So-
good.
Aw.
So I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Hey, we're gonna have to have her back.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being on. This has just been
You're
awesome.
welcome.
It's amazing to see what a world you have been in outside of Greensboro. I mean, we know her as the photographer, the
Extraordinary.
lens of Greensboro, in addition to the
Instead of the
voice
voice of Greensboro.
Yeah,
I like that.
you can see
Lens
her
of
stuff in the
Greensboro.
O'Henry.
Yeah.
You could find her at the Carolina Theater. If you go to one of these wonderful festivals, you'll see her there. Find it at LynnDonovanPhotography.com. Is that correct?
You can do that, or moose pics.
Moose Picks.
I like that.
And thank you for joining us, and join us again on our program.